The country's crumbling rail network has negatively impacted hundreds of thousands of commuters. Statistics show that around 700,000 South Africans regularly used trains to get to and from work in 2013. But 2 years ago, that number had dropped by almost 80%, with just 150,000 workers still relying on trains. Well, let's speak about the state of our rail networks now. I'm joined via Zoom by the Presidency's Head of Infrastructure, Dr. Kgosientsho Ramokgopa. Good afternoon, Dr. Ramokgopa. Welcome to today. Thank you very much for your time. I just saw a report the other day about the South African Institution of Civil Engineering. They are saying they are in their 2022 infrastructure report card. South Africa is in dire straits, General. They are painting a bleak picture of the state, for example, of rail in the country. That's not surprising, is it?
Yes, good afternoon, Braden, and thank you very much for the invitation and to the viewers at home. Yes, I think those the numbers are absolutely correct. So the state of rail infrastructure is almost in a state of terminal decline, and I think your description of the problem is on the mark. I mean, just to give you the latest figures, is that if you look, so there are two categories of movement with regards to rail. There's bulk and freight. You find that 79% of bulk and freight is road-based, and only 21% of that is rail-based, and that is primarily the responsibility or the function of Transnet. Then there's passenger rail, which is a responsibility of PRASA. If you look at the numbers there, you'll find that 91% of passenger trips in the country are road-based, and only 9% of that is rail-based. So that really, those figures, they tell you of a significant deterioration of the contribution of rail from a transport efficiency and movement point of view is no more a preferred mode for bulk and freight because of the challenges in relation to the theft that is related to the stealing of cable theft. I mean, Transnet just reported the other day that for the 2021 financial year, about 1,500 kilometers of cable theft have been recorded on some of their lines. And then when you come to passenger rail, really the main problem there has largely been around the safety of commuters, and as a result of that, the commuters have deserted rail as their preferred mode of travel, and that also has resulted in abandoned, if you like, train stations that were, if you like, an economic hub, major centers of movement of people in the townships and major urban centers. So those are deserted, and the operations have collapsed, and also have to do with the inability of the state agency to attract the necessary skills for the efficient management of rail infrastructure in the country. And that has resulted in the large amounts of theft that we have seen, and as a result, the rail is no more a significant component of the South African economic equation, and it's something that is receiving urgent attention, Braden.
You know, it must make your job as an infrastructure executive in the presidency trying to raise investment into infrastructure in the country when there's such high levels, as you've just painted, of crime, of vandalism and theft. But also, it must be concerning when you see an incident like what happened last week. And Transnet, I think Transnet has opened a case against the Ulundi Business Forum, accusing it of resorting to violence, including assault and blocking access roads and the discharging of a firearm on that rail network to Richards Bay. And currently we know that part of Europe is in trouble because Vladimir Putin has switched off the supply to gas to the likes of Germany. They are currently importing more coal from South Africa to fire up their power stations there, as one example. And this past weekend, the first consignment of natural gas from northern Mozambique has made its way to Europe. But we have our local business forum, like the Ulundi one, sabotaging a very important rail network. It must make your job very tough. I mean, how do you convince people, investors, let me say, Dr. Ramokgopa, to say, guys, we need the infrastructure, come to South Africa, because that's your job. That's what you are trying to mobilize globally.
No, you're absolutely correct there, Brad. And I think there's economic costs that are associated with these acts of sabotage, as you characterize them, and criminality. And one of the questions we have to field every time when we go outside and meet with the investor community, trying to place before them a very coherent and cogent case for investment in the country, is they raise the levels of the criminality and the extortion, disruption of projects. I mean, we have done a study that suggests that the country could be losing up to 45 billion rands of investment as a result of disruption of construction sites. So I think the key question to answer is, what are we doing about it? So from a safety point of view, and I'm talking about the commuter side, Minister Mbalula has introduced, if you like, a set of interventions that the PRASA is bringing on board to recruit aggressively, if you like, people who are going to help to police, if you like, both the network infrastructure and using some of the latest technologies like drone technology to safeguard the infrastructure, and then secondly, to look after the physical safety of commuters. They are recruiting a significant number of security officers to be on board and also at the station of this, if you like, passenger rail lines, and we have also prioritized the major corridors in the country. When I say major, I'm talking about those that carry the highest volume of passengers. We start there because there's a demonstrable return on investment, not necessarily that we're going to neglect other areas, but you have to prioritize your major corridors, and those are largely found in your major economic centers, the metro province of Gauteng, in Cape Town, and also in eThekwini. So first, look after the infrastructure and also take care of the physical safety of users. So those
and
are
what's your effort from an infrastructure investment perspective when it comes to the general freight networks? Because, I mean, if you have a mine somewhere in the Free State, or you want to then rail your goods for export, you know, what's the play there? What's the state of play regarding general freight networks?
Yeah, it's a very important question, but then you have made an important observation that we are missing out on the exponential increase in commodity prices, and that would have meant a significant windfall to the South African fiscus, and would have been able to redistribute those, if you like, the financial flows into other parts of the economy. So what we are doing, and the president has announced this, is and Transnet is working on that, and I think they are going out on market, is to bring on board, if you like, a third-party operator. So this essentially means that you are going to concession parts of the line to invite the private sector to come on board to do two things. First is to invest in the actual physical infrastructure, the rollout of that rail infrastructure, and secondly, it's about the efficient management of that rail infrastructure, so that the goods are able to get to the markets quicker. We're a bit more competitive as a market. South Africa is a destination for investment, and it allows us an opportunity to raise a significant amount of money into the National Revenue Fund, and then that can be redistributed back into the economy. So those are the two major interventions that we are making. The second one is interventions at the level of the ports. The Transnet has already gone out to invite the players to come and operate the ports on a commercial basis, and we think that we can draw on the significant amount of skills and expertise that is sitting with the private sector, both domestically and internationally, so that they come and invest, and we are making our ports more reliable and efficient. But having had this conversation, I think it's important that the rule of law should prevail, because you are still going to have
Yes.
incidents of people who are going to undermine the existence of the law. And that's why the president has elevated this, and working with the National Police Commissioner General Masemola, a unit is being put in place to help, one, in addressing those who are responsible for extortion and what is colloquially referred to as the construction mafia. Because if you don't attend to those, you are unlikely going to attract any form of significant investment into the South African economy. And when we talk about construction mafia, we mustn't conflate it with just genuine demands of communities who want to participate legitimately into construction projects. Those gets to be attended to through a separate process. There has to be affirmation of local contractors. It must be significant participation of women and youth-owned businesses, the use of local input materials to ensure that we are able to improve the economies where we are rolling out that infrastructure. So those are two separate conversations.
No, thank you very much for your time. Yeah, but we have to end it here. Sorry, Dr. Ramokgopa, I get the point. We get the point. But if you send a message to prospective investors that you are dealing with the threat of crime and violent crime against the rail networks, I'm sure you will be able to attract more money into the country for the rail infrastructure, plus other important infrastructure that's aligned to that, such as our ports as well. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. That's the head of infrastructure in the presidency of the Republic, Dr. Kgosientsho Ramokgopa.